actually a rule, you know. You're allowed to just stay out of my room if you want to. Ugh. Apparently you don't want to. Well, you drive me bananas, you know that? You really drive me fucking bananas. Anyway. How do I see the chat here? Why doesn't it just... Why don't you just have the chat pop out there, huh? That would be nice. Can't do that, though. No. It's a test. That's all this is. Just a fucking test. Anyway. Right. I don't want to listen to that. History. I want to listen to that. That's what I was listening to earlier. I've got energy right now. Energy. It's my currency. I've got plenty of energy.
Folks, if you're just now joining us, we have a vast
oh no, leave me alone.
Goblets, beautiful flasks and flagons.
It is a thunderstorm. I want to sleep. There's a thunderstorm outside. What do you want me to do?
Juices or soups. We even have cups for smaller cups.
There is a
now,
thunderstorm.
Folks, we are just getting started. This mug is a little different from the others in that it does have a handle. Now this ergonomic hand-carved woodcraft design is actually elven. So as you can see, this orb shows you alternate versions of
It
yourself.
is not worth doing like that.
Dimension-wise. And it seems in this universe I'm a cup salesman. Or I mostly sell cups. You can have Galzer's Orb of Multiversal Viewing for the low price of $45.95 or a Vampire's Diary. Now don't change that channel, folks, because we have more magic items at bargain prices. I was just telling Neil, this next item is perfect for all you dungeon delvers out there. This is Gwaibine's Pocket Stairs. Now, if you wish to skip a floor of any dungeon, labyrinth,
What the fuck was that noise?
Puzzlemancer's Crypt, simply unfurl this intricate swatch of hand-woven Pendubian astroflax, like so. And suddenly, a structurally sound staircase will manifest through the floor, providing a pathway roughly 1 story in depth to the layer below. Just beware, the stairs have a 50%
I need to like
chance of
unload
summoning
stuff more
a
frequently.
Faustian demon at the bottom who will attempt to bargain your soul for a big red gem. Ignore this mischievous imp, as the gem holds no power and is made of paper mache. The stairs are real though, and they're $8.95, or one of the many bone keys to the Blood Bridge.
Oh, the Blood Bridge.
This
Nice.
next one's a fun one, folks.
Love that
This
place.
is
Never
the
been though.
Scabbard of Shadows. Now, how does this one work? Well, it's pretty simple. If you bequeath this unique sheath to an eager thief, he'll become fleet of feet to sneak beneath a meek sheik or chief to relieve them from
It's so
any
cold and I
antique
haven't. No, my
seats. Now,
nose
these
is a
are
little
3
runny
apiece,
because of
or
the cold
free
from outside.
if you take a peek or maybe tweak one of my reeking teeth. I'll also throw in this
Fucking ring.
necklace.
Oh,
makes you
God
rhyme
damn
a
it.
bunch. Moving on, this next one's a bit of a saucy one. This is the mirror of the amorous incubus. Now, this mirror peers into your soul's most carnal desire and reflects back the visage of the one you lust for most.
That's not cool.
Now, I haven't tried this, folks, but if it doesn't reflect back Morgantha, the bar wench down by the Horse and Bean, it's busted. Maybe it is busted. Guess it's just a fancy-looking mirror.
No, god damn it.
I do look rather dashing, though. Neil, go ahead and get this out of here. Let's see, what's next? Oh, this is Spanaglasty's whistle. Now, Spanaglasty was 800 pounds, and this is his whistle. So this is 1020, but I'd be willing to barter for Gordimer's flute or Painter's pipe. This cute little guy is Wizbo. Now, Wizbo, or Wisborius Talvanus, the Black Tyrant, as he was known during his vile reign, was a twisted sorcerer and dark defiler who ruled over the territories of Skeent and
What are we doing? Hey, what are we doing? Hey!
during the Age
Hey,
of Iron
what are you
Fisting.
doing?
Now, he was solely responsible for the genocide of the Navirian elves, but was later thwarted by
What
his
are- hey.
apprentice, Ventrilotrax, bless his light,
Don't
who
do
shattered
that.
his amulet and transmuted
Hey,
his body
what
into
did I
the
just
flaccid
say?
felt form
Hey,
before
no.
he killed at my nephew's last birthday. It was a bloodbath. Say hi,
Don't
Wizbo.
go in there. Hero? Oh my god.
The only way he talks is if you torture him. Can't use him like a regular puppet because his butt's
No,
he's
you
free. Well, he's
jerk.
not free. He's still trapped in
I
his puppet
literally
form.
just I
But,
just told you, didn't
He's
I?
yours as long as you
I
torture
don't need
him.
going in there.
Okay.
Get the fuck out of my room.
These are smoke
Shira.
bombs. If you need to
My
get
goodness.
away, just
You
throw
are
one
a
of these
brat,
down
you
to create
cat.
a bunch of smoke, and
Truly.
you can get away during the smoke. So these aren't magical, but
Okay.
not everything has to be crazy. These are $4 each. And we are moving on. Folks, this Mystic Hourglass, beautiful Geldian craftsmanship, when inverted, will reweave the very threads of fate and time, allowing you to
Okay, it's
remake
that
any
one.
crucial decisions within the last 10 to 15 minutes. Unfortunately, it's only powered by the regret felt upon realizing you should have ordered fajitas after you ordered some other shit and you watched someone else get their
Fajitas.
fajitas. So, really the only thing this lets you do is go back in time to get fajitas. You could also kill a bunch of people in a Chili's to let out some darkness. As long as it's within the fajita time frame, you can undo that decision as well as the fajita one. So this is the most expensive item on today's broadcast, and it's not for sale. Now, folks, this next item is so new,
God
so
damn it.
exclusive.
No,
I haven't even seen it yet. Go ahead and bring it out, Neil. Now, folks, I am so excited about this. If this is what I think it is
Dude,
one of a kind
really?
and truly a sight to behold. Neil, what the hell is that?
Don't.
I don't like that. Get that out of here. No, don't put it down. Just get out.
What was that noise? There's stuff in here.
Sorry about that, folks. Neil used to be a chair.
I don't like the fucking
He got
sound of
morphed
that.
into a guy. He was a chair. Before. Finally, we have this barrel of arcane jest. Now, this puppy is filled to the brim with divine inspiration regarding prop-based magic item humor. Now, I can personally assure you this works every
Touch me,
time.
don't touch me,
It's so
don't.
easy to use. What I do is I simply scrape the bottom of this barrel, and when I'm done sort of picking the splinters from my fingernails, I'll find like a tongue, or something about a sword. Yeah, so in this universe, it seems I'm a little more meta than usual. Also, the curtains were different. That's $2.99 or a one-sided coin. Up next, we have
What, food? Did I even bring food? I didn't even bring food.
Sneak beneath a meek me or these are three. Oh no!
Stop! Brand new Orno shirt available now, featuring this
Really?
design. Also, it's definitely not cursed. Get your sick.
Wait. Shit. What's that noise? I need to actually focus for a second. Huh. Great. Shut up. Oh, you fucking dick. I had to turn off my music because of all that. Oh yeah, no, oh fuck. I have no food. What wasn't music? Why did I say music? Tough. Ah, huh. I'm gonna check on that. Okay.
Design. Also, it's definitely
Minecraft
not cursed.
Bedrock.
Get yours now at wizardswithguns.shop or click the link in the description.
Volcanic ash. Blah blah blah. Stairs. Cool. Don't. Below Y0. What do I just like mine it all? I don't know. Why aren't you on autoplay?
I'm having so much fun on our date. And you're making me dinner later? Such a gentleman. Oh, but I can't wait that long. Why don't we just start with dessert?
Begone, foul temptress.
Clever barbarian. And I was so close to draining your essence, too.
My essence remains undrained.
Oh, it's really such a shame, though. With those juicy muscles and that thick neck, my God. Surely you'll make an exception for little old me.
Well, I did bring you gifts.
Gifts? Ooh. Oh my.
Fucking laugh.
Oh, so cute. Oh, you shouldn't have. Huh? There's nothing in here.
I will not tolerate the forces of evil!
How much of this shit do I have to fucking mine?
How'd you like dessert? Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Curse you! You little shit! Just give me your goddamn essence already! The f is that?
The succubus survives by draining the essence of its victims. Without essence, they'll starve.
Oh no.
And with all those broken bones, safe to say your sucking days are gone.
No, don't leave me here, please! I'll do anything!
Rest in peace, demoness.
Wait!
Yes.
You forgot to make us dinner.
I thought you'd never ask.
I feel like he could have broken her heart without that part.
Eat.
No, stop.
I thought you were hungry.
No, I don't want
Eat the food.
Stop it.
Come on,
No,
eat
I'm
it.
not eating my own. It's really good.
Why is it not on autoplay? Okay,
And
maybe it is.
if you leave it lit while you sleep, it actually doubles your REM
Ah,
cycle.
not
That's
another one.
twice as much
I'm
dream.
pretty low
One
actually.
time, I dreamed that a big Mickey Mouse threw it in my mouth.
Okay. So, so I don't know if it'll get rid of that, unless you don't want to get rid of that. God damn it. So, what a lot of people don't know is they're actually off balance. And the cool thing about Mirror Candle is it takes the surrounding negative electrons and turns them into positive
I need to get out of here.
protons.
I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here.
And that's a magnetic technology. It's melted right into the candle.
So does that improve your balance?
Exactly, Mark. Now, my favorite. I'm sorry. One moment, please. Hey, Peter? Remember when I said I'm doing a business thing? Maybe just stay in your room? What? What's wrong?
My egg!
Your egg?
Where's my fucking egg?
Okay, I don't know. Can you please just keep it down? Sorry, everyone. As I was saying,
Did you do the laundry?
not yet.
Can you do the laundry?
I'm busy right now. And you don't wear clothes.
I want my polo shirt.
Your polo shirt. You always take that thing off right away. You say it's too hot.
It's scratchy.
Okay, so why do you want it? Okay, Mark, why don't you go
Hey.
ahead and smell this? Yeah, so now imagine you smelled something good. Right? That's the protons.
Get up.
Peter,
What?
Get up. You're on my leg.
I'm not sitting on anything.
Get up. I want to chat.
Peter.
I
I think I would know if I was.
don't have a
sitting on
way
an
to
egg.
deal with this. I've used all the
Oh my
fucking
God,
wood.
Peter.
I used all the fucking wood. I might actually not have a way to deal with this.
I'm not sitting on it.
I know. How much ice do you need?
I need ice.
So each purchase comes with a candle koozie in your choice of blue or red. Now, if you recruit
can't believe
two
this.
other couples,
I want a green one.
so it's just blue or red.
What about green?
What about it? Sorry. So each purchase.
I want to go to Dave and Buster's.
Okay. Then go.
You're not coming?
No. I'm doing this.
Just come later.
I can't. I have church in the morning.
For not drinking.
Okay, I didn't think we'd be drinking anyway.
Of course you drink. It's a barcade. A bar arcade.
Okay, so you're gonna drink then.
Yeah, I need you to drive.
Okay, fine. We'll go later.
It'll be closed later.
Then don't go. Then we're not going.
Since when do you go to church?
I always go to church. As a matter of fact, I've recently joined a new one.
Probably not. Yeah, I
Did you
didn't think
just put
so.
up that cross?
What are you talking about? It's always been there.
It's new. I see the Hobby Lobby tag still on it.
So I replaced the there used to be an old cross there, and it was dusty, so I got a new one.
It was dusty?
Yeah.
Then dusty. The nearest Hobby Lobby is like 45 minutes away.
Peter, get the hell out of here.
Okay, this guy's a racist.
No, I'm not. Shut up.
You shut up.
No, fuck you.
Fuck you!
Damn it, Peter, go back to your goddamn room.
God damn it!
I think we're gonna go.
Wait, you don't want the candles?
No.
Was it the penguin?
It's just, if it came in green.
Get out.
What?
All of you, get out.
Will we see you at church tomorrow?
Nope. I'm going to Dave & Buster's.
Oh, hell yeah!
Wait, we're still interested.
Cindy, get the fuck up. You're on his goddamn egg.
Fucking knew it!
Now imagine you smelled something good. Right? Good. So that's the Protrons.
What was that thing that broke
Mickey
him?
Mouse threw up in my mouth. One time.
Frank lost it immediately.
Oh yeah.
I believe they say if you love something, you gotta let it go.
He's right. Yeah, I did love that ripstick. It was my grandpa's, but after I was trying to fish it out of that storm drain all day, my arm just gave out.
Your grandpa had a ripstick?
Sorry I'm late.
No worries, bro. You're actually right on time.
Actually, I was late to being early, so I baked these apology cookies for my tardiness.
No way.
That's what I'm talking about.
You're literally so random. But Dylan, wouldn't baking cookies make you even more late?
You're right. Maybe that's why I made these pumpkin bear claws to say I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
You're the best, Dylan.
Bear claws, D&D, my favorite hoodie. Yeah, now it's a party.
You comfy enough over there, Mason?
Let's just say, bug-wise, my snug status is rug. Oh, okay.
They're the most wholesome people.
Has arrived.
Looks like someone rolled a natural 20 on their charisma check.
Huh?
Oh, I was saying, someone rolled a natural 20 on their charisma check. Honestly, Dylan's gesture thing is way better.
No. Thank you, Casey.
Of course.
Corey, what is that? This? It's just a dumb drawing of my character.
Whoa! Awesomeness! Holy guacamole.
Corey, that is seriously so good.
We got a modern-day Leonardo DiCaprio.
I don't know about that.
Dude, I can literally only draw stick figures.
That belongs in a museum.
Thanks, guys. I mean, the hair? The hair actually took me the longest.
Dude, I will literally pay you to draw my half tiefling, half Azamar.
Already did.
Oh my god! That is so good!
I like there's no joke here.
Wait, is that what I think it is?
Yep. Gwendar's signature wolf arm.
Oh yeah! From Ulfgar, Druid King of the Wolf Clan.
From when you saved his favorite cub.
Zach, how did you come up with that plot? Actually, I think I improvised that.
You improvised that?
Do that a lot.
Way.
No, wait, sorry. I actually wrote that.
You wrote that? No way.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Zach, I'm begging you. You need to turn this campaign into a book.
You really think so?
Oh, I know so, dude. It would be even better than Narnia.
Well, yeah, probably.
Literally blows Mr. Tumnus out of the water.
Oh yeah.
Who put these shoes on my hooves?
Back to the drawing board.
All right, guys. Let's rein it in. Jeez. All right. Where did
I
we
wish I could
leave
have
off?
friends that were
I
that
believe that Corey slayed the Black
cringe but
Dragon
wholesome at the same
Kyberion.
time.
Guys, we slayed the Black Dragon Kyberion.
Oh, not before Mason tried to seduce him.
Please don't remind me.
What? He was cute. You are so gay.
I am.
You are.
Okay. Dylan, these are gold. You should open a bakery.
Yeah, totally.
Honestly, that's pretty much the dream. I can see it now. Dylan's Donuts.
Speaking of gold, I rolled a natural 20 to get to the dragon's treasure before everyone else.
Wait. Oh crap.
What does it mean?
So I can
Okay,
split
whatever.
it evenly amongst the party.
Am I underwater? Fuck.
There.
We literally almost had a PvP situation on our hands.
Okay, you're so lucky I'm all in a spell slots.
All right. In the treasure, you find a pearl of power.
I vote Casey should have it.
Wait, but you're the warlock.
Yeah, but you deserve it because you gave that amazing speech that inspired us to defeat the dragon.
Casey, we couldn't have done it without your rally cry.
It was too good, man. You have to say it again.
Guys, thanks. I don't know if I remember it. Plus, like, I'd have to do the voice.
Please.
To glory, to death, raise your swords, for we fight not for ourselves, but for those we hold dear. For the masters of their craft, the tellers of tales, the lovers of men, for those who dream, and for those who
Fucking
have
hell.
fun. We stand one
I'm underwater.
last time,
God
together
damn it.
to victory.
Oh my God.
Literal chills.
You should be an actor.
You guys.
Ah,
I'm
she was
seriously gonna
pretty
see you on
good.
the silver screen one day.
It wasn't that good. The accent could use a little work.
Casey, it was like we were literally in British Columbia.
Really?
What? What?
Read it again.
Okay. To glory, to death, raise your swords, for we fight not for ourselves, but for those we hold dear, the masters of their craft, the tellers of tales, the lovers of men, for those who dream and for those who have fallen. Let us stand one last time together to victory.
Wait, am I still on fire?
Oh yeah, big time.
Very wholesome. Alright, what to listen to now? Yeah!
That Seath casts is the shadow that is Gyra. They battle but can't exist without each other. They've even used their worshippers as avatars in this senseless feud. The Sword of Moonlight was created by Gyra for human or elven use. Necron, the demon inhabiting the island, was once a normal person who's been corrupted by Gyra's magic. Now he toils beneath the island in his laboratory, powered by the crystals, creating monsters for Gyra's army. This is another great instance of environmental storytelling. You can only glean information from what's happening in front of you. It's a little bit of science fiction injected into Kingsfield. I also appreciate some in-universe context as to why there are monsters running around the island. The presence of evil itself would have probably been a sufficient explanation, but this is far more interesting. After completing a 4-boss gauntlet with a bunch of enemies that are too big to effectively fight you, we do battle with Necron. His sister has come to the island in search of him, and knowing his backstory makes things even more tragic. But battle we must, and he... Where are you going? Is he waiting for a high five to be reciprocated? Wow, that is the best squatting form I have ever seen, while wearing armor no less. Oh, okay, he has not forgotten about that high five. Sorry to leave you hanging, brother, but I had to do it to you. Now before I go any further, I've got to mention something quickly. I expected more poison swamps in this game, and I'm impressed by the developer's restraint. Miyazaki loves poison swamps, like, he loves poison swamps.
I don't
Poison
fucking
swamps
love
in Elden Ring. Miyazaki said, and I quote, "I can't help myself." I'm not a fan of poison swamps. I don't think a lot of people are fans of poison swamps. You move very slowly, the enemies inexplicably are unaffected by the sludge, and of course, you get poisoned. When you're poisoned, you can't really fight effectively because you have to unpoison yourself, but you can't really unpoison yourself because you have to fight. Anyway, all that to say, I would still take a poison swamp any day over a teleporter cube maze. A teleporter cube maze is, to me, sort of the ultimate fuck you. Teleporter mazes are among the lowest of the low in terms of level types, and transparent cubes are among the lowest of the low in terms of types of walls and floors. The game had built up so much goodwill over the past couple of hours, but here, it's over. I'm condemned to wander the teleporter cube
I can't cook with this
for
fucking
all
thing.
eternity. Later that day, I finished the teleporter cube maze and arrived at the final boss. In the interest of not complaining about two separate entities, I'll just consider this an extension of the teleporter cube maze. When you die to the final boss, you get to do the teleporter cube maze again.
What do
If
you want me to do
from a
here?
cube half-full perspective, the worse you are at fighting the boss, the better you get at doing the teleporter cube maze.
Is it cooked?
The final boss here is Gyra in dragon form, and the whole affair is marginally better than the first game's final boss. He stands stock still, but has a wide variety of moves. It works a little better than most bosses because on top of being able to bait out specific attacks, he has tells that you'll learn over time. It's not too difficult to avoid his stronger attacks, although he's got these annoying orbs that float around the arena doing chip damage. You can dispatch them with spells or your bow, but Gyra starts using really strong projectiles when you wander around. The damage they do is negligible enough that your huge-ass stockpile of healing items should be enough to carry you through. Since magic doesn't work on him, the fight takes a long time. You'll be smacking this thing in the head or neck or nothing 50% of the time because the hitbox is just wherever the game wants it to be, but eventually Gyra will fall. He becomes very tiny and floats away in an orb. Alexander grasps the Moonlight Sword. The island's curse is broken as Seath and Gyra disappear from Melanaut. The Moonlight Sword's return ensures that Verdite will live happily ever after. Or will it? In case it's not obvious, my respect for Kingsfield 2 is monumental. It is an incredibly, surprisingly forward-thinking game. Many of the improved mechanics are treated as precious, reusable elements rather than disposable additions. Sweeping changes, particularly to the world design, alter the experience in a lot of ways, yet they're implemented with a subtlety that's hard to appreciate when you've been conditioned by the 30 years of games since. It's a game with many problems, ambition that was perhaps too great for its own good. Bosses don't really work. They're brutal shit tests designed to empty your coffers of healing items and you of patience. Despite some noticeable improvements to melee, magic, and ranged battling, there's still issues with combat, some perhaps fundamental to this kind of game, the way that they're making it. The game has wonderfully creative level design, and the whole world feels like an extension of itself, which is both a blessing and a curse. You never know if you're progressing, wandering around in the dark, or some combination of both. They succeeded in making a world more organic than any dungeon crawler up to that point. They just needed more time and resources to make it feel less homogeneous, I think. Kingsfield 2 is a non-linear cult classic piece of history. It, even more so than its predecessor, excels in its atmosphere, tone, and ambience. It presents you with agency that you may not be prepared for, and it will send you through the gauntlet, and you will cry, but you will come out the other side glad to have experienced it. This game and the people behind it deserve recognition for quietly planting a seed that would change the action RPG genre. Without this game, there's no Dark Souls. On a personal level, without Dark Souls, I never find Matthew Matosis and Joseph Anderson's analyses. I never become interested in doing this, and I never bloviate about Kingsfield 2 to you here on YouTube. I suppose that's history for you, a bunch of dumb luck that results in the here and now. Well, here's my opinion on Kingsfield 2. You should play it, now. Immediately following Kingsfield 2's release, Nishida began penning the scenario for Kingsfield 3, or Kingsfield 2 as it would be known in the West. The increased emphasis on dialogue, lore, and environmental storytelling put some pressure on the team to make something bigger, more epic, and bombastic. From had accrued much technical knowledge during the production of Kingsfield 1 and 2. This allowed them to further beautify what would become Kingsfield 3. The team didn't take to the improved visuals. They felt that by the second game, Kingsfield had an atmosphere all its own, an identity. This was partially the result of its short draw distance, dim lighting, and otherwise lo-fi graphics. Nishida advised the art designer, create the impression of a grim atmosphere, lonely to the point of tears. This ethos, this focus on apocalyptic fantasy, became a From Software trademark. Born from technical limitations, they've become very good at portraying this low fantasy, plagued by darkness. In June 1996, From Software released a promotional disc. On it was effectively a demo for their next game, called Kingsfield 3 Pilot Style. Scant information on this demo exists, but supposedly only 8 individuals at the 1996 Tokyo Game Show were given a copy by From. I would take that with a grain of salt, since it's only a rumor, but in any case, years later, somebody would upload a copy onto the internet. From there, John Osborne, the man, the myth, the legend, would translate it into English. Thanks again, John. It's just as well too, because this is much more than a simple demo. Pilot Style fits in between Kingsfield 2 and 3 as a miniature story, showing what happened leading up to the third game. It seems that evil has returned to Verdite. You play as the warrior Silviera, searching for what else but the Sword of Moonlight. While it's only an hour long, you get a strong sense for the advancements made in Kingsfield 3, which we'll talk about in greater depth shortly. The performance in the demo is, like Kingsfield 2, all over the damn place. They put these balls in the most unstable places, I swear. The demo ends with a boss fight, which is really more of a regular fight with a strong enemy, and Silviera finding the broken Moonlight Sword at like 100 frames per second, my god. He remembers words spoken to him by the king. Verdite's savior will come soon. You must protect the broken holy sword and give it to him, no doubt foreshadowing the adventures to come. On June 96th? That's a crazy long month to wait just for one game. Pilot Style was a pretty progressive idea, although it's odd that just a few people were given a copy of it, supposedly. My guess is that the team developed this as a prototype or a scrapped idea for the main game and just found a way to repurpose it. It's a smart repurposing though, and this idea of creating extraneous media to give games greater context would become more popular over time. Eventually, Kingsfield 3 did release proper in Japan and internationally. Once again, From pulled it off in less than a year after their previous game. This time it was more like 11 months though, which is still wild, but just a little bit more reasonable. The first Kingsfield game had a staff of only 7 active employees. By now, From Software had grown. They had 30 developers in 1998, so it's reasonable to assume 15 to 20 in 96. In fact, that might be a liberal estimate. Nishida said in an interview, "We'll probably grow a little larger, but not much." Okay, that's rich. The first thing you'll notice booting up Kingsfield 3 is that they got a brand new voice actor to do the intro.
No one could explain the fall of the king. 15 years ago, Alfred had slain the dice festering evil and had risen triumphant as the new king.
He is the best. I love hearing him do these reads. Verdite's current king, the once beloved Jean Alfred, has gone mad. Where once he had slain evil, it now festers within him. He destroyed the Moonlight Sword, the symbol of hope for Verdite's people. Alexander, the protagonist from the previous game, imbued upon 4 people magical powers in order to protect the kingdom. I don't necessarily know how he did it, let's just assume the Moonlight Sword gave him some kind of power in the previous game. Alexander sacrifices himself to seal the castle in holy magic, and magically sends the king's young son, Lyle, a warning of the events to come. 10 years later, Lyle is strong and wise enough to understand the message sent to him. He returns to the lost kingdom of Verdite.
For 10 years, Lyle carried the burden of being prince to a damned kingdom. Now old enough to understand the message etched in his mind forever, it's time he faced his destiny.
Good lord, man, tone it down a notch. Lyle has spent 10 years in the care of Leon, high elf and expert swordsmith. He gifts Lyle a sword called the Excelictor, which is probably the coolest weapon name I've heard across the entire series, and sends Lyle on his way. That's a lot more stuff and things than Kingsfield 1. I do like how they tied the different games together though. That's the benefit of assuming the player has already been through the previous game, as opposed to Kingsfield 2 where they were essentially starting with a fresh slate. The first thing I'll say, because it's the first thing I noted, is that the game is locked at 17 frames per second. If I had told you that before talking about any of the other games, you probably would have been shocked and appalled. But now, in light of the alternative, it's actually a huge relief. See, Kingsfield 3 ups the graphical detail to a significant degree. Whereas Kingsfield 1 used 200 to 300 polygons per model, Kingsfield 3 uses upward of 1500. In Todd Howard terms, that's 5 times the detail. The enemy models, NPC models, and the item models are all a massive step up in terms of visual
Where the
fidelity.
fuck are they
It's not just
going?
that, the texture size has been improved greatly, and there are just more textures in general. Finally, perhaps the most impressive thing is that environmental geometry is much more complex than the previous game. There are rolling hills and slopes, well, relatively speaking. Walls come to curvatures, giving a more natural and organic sense of coherence to the outdoor environments. Speaking of those environments, they are far more expansive than anything we saw in Kingsfield 2. From the beginning, the team wanted to do more with these outdoor sections, and they definitely followed through with those plans in Kingsfield 3. Because of these expansive outdoor sections and improved visuals, the game without its limiter was even less stable than Kingsfield 2. The decision was made to limit the frame rate, and it was a wise one indeed. One other sacrifice the game makes is its sprite-based trees, which don't look great, but it's hardly a big deal in light of the changes. I mean, the man-eaters have never looked
first time I've
better.
died.
Damn, what a way we've come. Say, I wonder if there's a secret door down here. Okay, so that's how it's gonna be, is it? One thing the team was worried about in development was providing player direction in open environments. It's hard enough to stay on the rails when the game world is providing you pathways to go down. Having no guardrails is another kettle of fish entirely. With this in mind, From saw their limited rendering range as a tool rather than an impediment. Darkness obscures large swaths of the outdoor sections. When you enter a new area, you'll often see obvious pathways and gates acting as breadcrumb trails. Treasure and other fucking delights await those brave enough to go off the beaten path. But for the most part, you are given indication of the quote-unquote intended way to go. There are some 3D objects like Verdite Castle that render regardless of its distance to the player, helping give you a sense of direction and scale. It all works together as a solid solution for what would have been a real problem back in 1996. People who started playing Daggerfall that year are still walking to Gothway Gardens as we speak. I'm sure it'll be over the next hill. Don't give up. If you do wander around the opening area, you'll find a lot of treasure chests and other various sundries that can't be accessed yet. So start taking mental notes, as you'll surely be back many times. While the Excelictor looks very cool and has an extremely badass name, it's actually outclassed by pretty much any weapon you find in the first few minutes of the game. That's because the sword levels up alongside you. It'll become more powerful as you gain experience. It also doesn't matter whether you're actively using it, so feel free to just throw it in your inventory and come back later to see how it's doing. The swordplay and general combat rhythm of this game iterates on Kingsfield 2 in some good ways, and a few I'm not so sure about. It essentially works the same way, so there's no reason to go over another basic combat explanation. Damage types make a much more significant difference in this game, with high crush damage being great against enemies like skeletons, or holy damage being effective against the undead, like skeletons. You know, now that I think about it, why do skeletons represent such a threat? Shouldn't they just fall apart with the smallest application of force? You'd think so, but no, especially not in Kingsfield 3.
Not good.
The threshold required to make enemies flinch or interrupt their attacks seems to be much higher in this entry. I don't like that. The hit feedback in the second game was a big improvement over the first, but here it feels worse than that. Enemies often don't flinch at all. There are some enemies like these mushroom things where avoiding damage is often entirely contingent on making them flinch, but without the required power level, they just don't. It makes you feel weak and ineffective. As a matter of fact, I spent a lot of time wondering if I was even making contact with the enemy at all. This was never a problem before in the series, even in the first game, so I find the change very odd. It's almost a prototypical example of Dark Souls' stagger system, but the lack of feedback makes it tough to contend with. On the upside, enemy behaviors have seen an upgrade from Kingsfield 2. Movement speed hasn't changed, but combat feels slower and more deliberate than ever. Enemies will actively stop you from getting the drop on them, making you unable to circle strafe many of the humanoid foes. Spamming attacks won't always work. Enemies have contingency plans, like getting out of dodge and raising a shield when you swing. You actually have to move back and forth quickly, tricking the enemy and coming from the other direction. The focus on lunges and distance closing moves is also heightened. This makes it more important than ever to understand enemy behaviors. Your brain can't really turn off. You've always got to think about what weapon you're using and how you're using it. Once you know you're strong enough and have the right damage type, you can more boldly step up to enemies to stagger them. Thankfully, the game now allows you to map consumable items to the select button. You better believe the minute I figured that out, I slapped medicinal herbs on that slot and kept them there till the bitter end. I'm not even kidding when I say this small change probably saves you an hour of menu usage downtime over the course of the game. There's also a menu option which allows you to store and retrieve items and equipment you aren't using, which is awesome. All in all, this game represents the single biggest improvement in combat up to this point. It only adds mechanical complexity, it doesn't remove anything, although some things remain or are altered to become more frustrating. The opening area is called Quist Village. Unsurprisingly, it has a shop where you can buy and sell things. New to the series is the Inns. Here you can pay a nominal fee to restore your health and MP anytime. There's also a save point in here, which, like the other games, are in rather short supply. Outside of the initial learning curve, you likely won't be visiting inns often, but they do add to the game's overall flavor of journey and adventure. Dying in the Kingsfield games will force you to reload unless you have a dragon crystal. These rare items will instantly bring you back to full health when used, but if you have one on your person, you'll respawn in a hidden area of Quist Village with all of your stuff. It's kind of a hit or miss mechanic. 9 times out of 10, it's just more efficient to reload your last save. I do like the idea of the trade-off with dragon crystals. Reminds me of Dark Souls humanity, a useful item you don't want to waste, but also one that restores your health in a pinch. Sometimes it's worth using just to avoid death. Attached to the opening area is the first real dangerous zone, the ancient battlefield, inhabited by all manner of ghouls and bellsprouts. There's a woman here who asks you to help lay her dead son's spirit to rest. It's a bit out of the way, and for this early in the game, it's a dangerous activity. It's entirely optional. In fact, there are a number of optional quests you can complete throughout Kingsfield 3. The game wears its increased ambition on its sleeve. Some NPCs know who you are, some don't. Some have hopes that you'll return things to their former glory, and some write you off as the cursed spawn of that asshole in the castle. Was that a Matei joke? Hearing the old woman wistfully recall memories of her childhood home is sad. Afterwards, she tells Lyle that she considers him family. This woman's dialogue, along with that of other NPCs, really sells the horrifying state of Verdite. Things feel dire. Also, the game has a glossary where you can peruse the conversations you've already had. It's a great way to catch up if you just feel lost or if a character requested something you can't remember. Completing her assignments, you'll be rewarded with a map of Verdite as well as your first magic spell. In this game, spells of each elemental school are initially granted via these sigils on the ground. Along with the spell, you'll also receive a telepathic message from a figure associated with that element. After initially learning that school, the corresponding crystals will boost your individual schools of magic, and you can learn more spells by raising their stats. It's a good system, but if you start using crystals before having learned that magic, you'll just waste them. It's entirely possible you'll do this unknowingly. From there, you'll enter a far more dungeony zone. You'll find not 1, not 2, but 3 distinct varieties of skeleton, including these boys that try to tickle you with their riblets. This area, the barracks, feels the most like a Kingsfield 1 zone since Kingsfield 1. It's designed very horizontally, but there are a lot of secret doors and areas that aren't accessible yet. There's much more by way of scenery in Kingsfield 3 though. Props like tables, shelves, chairs populate areas to make them feel lived in, and different areas will use different models for the same object, which is a nice touch. Kingsfield 3 allows you to examine non-magical items for a description, which is a massive help. This is the master key for most of the treasure chests. Most of the time, the key opens the treasure chests. The key opens fucking like 4 of the 900 chests in this game. Don't fall for its lies. The game also introduces the ability to use your bow to operate distant switches, and although this mechanic is seldom used, it is a treat to uncover it for the first time. There's a great deal more environmental interactivity in this game that we'll cover shortly. The fountains and flasks make a comeback as well. Rather than having you manually adding types of water over time, different areas will have preset fountains that you can bottle water from for later. It's not as creatively implemented, and for various reasons it doesn't work as well, but it's still a good system. The barracks directly connect to another dungeon area called the Forest of Vard. This means that at any point you need to replenish healing items, you have to go for a long walk through the forest, through the barracks, through the ancient battlefield, back to the store. Considering this is the beginning of the game, it's likely you'll need to make this pilgrimage at least once. The Forest of Vard, however, is an interesting area because it introduces you to one of the core differences between Kingsfield 3 and every other game in the series. You are given a key which can slot into these crests around the area. Doing so will cause giant tree stumps to rearrange themselves. Some will go away, allowing you access to an area, and some will appear, barring you from other areas. Kingsfield 3's dungeons often contain structured puzzles. Rarely are they complex, but their presence adds a lot to the game for me. In general, there are 2 major components to a Kingsfield game. The first is exploration, which could include a lot of different things. Mapping out an area, finding secret doors, speaking to NPCs, and just walking around. The bulk of your time is spent exploring. The second component is combat, which is just what it sounds like. Kingsfield excels at the former, but not so much in the latter, meaning, objectively speaking, there's not much to these games. Of course, a game like this is an experiential thing, like I said, more than the sum of its parts, but there's room for improvement. Adding puzzles to the dungeons takes advantage of that room in a really non-intrusive way. The puzzles are simple enough to be a natural extension of the existing gameplay, and just complicated enough to add some much-needed variety. There's the Temple of Wind, for instance, a dark and eerie dungeon made up of symmetrical branching paths. In order to reach the end, you'll have to find and light every torch in the dungeon. Not only a simple puzzle with some environmental interactivity, but a subtle nudge to the player that they might have missed learning a spell earlier. After all, you need to cast Fireball to light the torches. Lake Noel is dotted with small islands that can only be reached via different magical bridges. In order to activate them, you have to spin this color wheel to their corresponding color, causing some bridges to appear and others to vanish. In case you're wondering, yes, being colorblind was a problem for me at this part. To use the wheel, you have to give the woman guarding it increasingly hard to come by items, so you can't really wantonly try your luck. You have to carefully study the bridges that can be raised and pick colors in the most efficient way possible. Exploration is optional for much of the map, but who knows what treasures await ye. By the time you arrive in the game's second town, Relugo Village, it's clear that there's another big structural pivot. The way that the world fits together is entirely different than the previous games. Kingsfield 1 had 5 dungeon levels, Kingsfield 2 had an intertwined world comprised of several different environments. Kingsfield 3 once again features something akin to levels but connected to each other via choke points located in each area. The shortcuts and routes back to previous areas have been replaced with a much simpler and more traditional structure. Let's discuss what's bad about this first. The most obvious arrow through the proverbial heart is that this world structure sacrifices what made Kingsfield 2 so unique. That excitement you feel arriving to a prior area in an unexpected way is severely diminished. It's not entirely gone because certain areas do contain routes back to previous ones, but they're simple pathways and more a matter of expectation over time. Part of the fun involved in navigating Kingsfield 2 is constantly making mental calculations, trying to remember all of the spidery pathways that might lead to your goal, and striving for efficiency while choosing the best ones. Well, that was part of the fun for me anyway. Some people might hate this and welcome a more linear format. I think in either case we can agree that the intentionally designed organic world of the second game did make it special, a bold and unique choice in level design. Kingsfield 3 in comparison is far more traditional. I would actually liken this change to that which was Dark Souls to Dark Souls 2. That sequel gets a lot of shit, and a lot of it is warranted, and some of it isn't. Regardless, one of the things people take issue with is that Dark Souls 2 abandoned Dark Souls' iconic world design. Structurally, Dark Souls 2 and Kingsfield 3 have a lot in
I gotta
common.
finish Dark
Each
Souls
game
2.
has areas or levels that outstretch to one or more levels, and then those outstretch to one or more levels, and then eventually you reach the end of a branch and you're forced to backtrack to an earlier point and head down a different set of branches. Here's a rough map of the games and the way that levels flow into each other. Hopefully you can see what I mean. There's a parallel here. It's less organic and arguably results in a more repetitive, or at least less replayable experience. The upside to this is that levels can be designed with an intended flow. If you know where the player is going and don't have to worry about where they're coming from, it's much easier to curate enemy placements, item drops, and that kind of thing. In Kingsfield's case, having this clear delineation between borders also greatly helps the level variety, both visual design and the mechanical structure of these areas. Some are more open, exploratory, and horizontal, and others are more labyrinthian and vertical. You can have an open prairie built on the precept of exploration, you can have a cave full of linear hallways full of combat challenges, or a more vertical dungeon that confuses you as you try to navigate it. Kingsfield 2 didn't have this kind of flexibility. As intelligently designed as that game is, I do prefer Kingsfield 3's take on things. I wish it were designed more often with verticality in mind, but still, I prefer having this large variety of different areas. I always looked forward to passing through a dungeon and seeing what would come next. The game itself also isn't linear, not by a long shot. Most of these dungeons immediately assail you with the classic Kingsfield confusion. They're full of different hallways, secret doors, and branching paths. Most of the dungeons will actually lead to at least 2 different areas as well, so you still have to be conscious about heading in the quote-unquote right direction. You're never funneled, necessarily. Also, something incredibly impressive about Kingsfield 2 and 3 is the lack of loading screens. I don't mean that the games don't have many loading screens, I mean that outside of fast traveling, the games don't have loading screens. Transitions between areas are totally seamless, which heightens the immersion and makes the game so much more enjoyable to just play. It's also a startling technical achievement for a disc-based game in 1996, and something that's not often discussed when people talk about Kingsfield. I can understand why. After all, if something isn't in a game, why would you notice or think about it? The lack of breaks in the world and interruptions is really critical in establishing the flow of these games. Thanks to the snail's pace your character moves at, data can be actively streamed from the game disc as opposed to having to be loaded in chunks. Yet another example of a technical restraint being turned into something practical. In order to contend with the many complex areas in the game, Kingsfield 3 gives you one of, if not the, most helpful item in the entire series, the Pixies map. This is a dungeon auto map. It begins as a blank sheet of paper in each area, but as you explore, it'll fill in and give you a good idea of the pathways you've already been to or might have missed. It's downright necessary given some of the complexity of the game's later dungeons, and something that would have been nice to have in any of the Kingsfield games. The second most useful item in the entire series, slightly more sarcastically, is the Fujin boots. Something I didn't mention in previous sections of the video is that you can sprint by holding down the interact button while moving. This is true for all games but the first. It's mostly a luxury in Kingsfield 2, but in the third game it becomes critically important to your strategy, namely, it allows you to dodge certain enemy attacks and traps. The problem with that sprinting is that it drains your stamina and magic gauge, and the delay before they refill can feel like an eternity. The Fujin boots altogether eliminate that time period.
Oh my god.
I slapped these fuckers on and didn't peel them
Oh
off
shit,
till while I was at home with
I
his
have
wife
no
and
more.
kids, watching the game and drinking a Miller Lite. There are certain points where sprinting is necessary, small gaps that can only be crossed while sprinting, for instance. There's this narrow cliff in Relugo village that can't be walked across.
Wow.
How the fuck did it spit me out like that?
I really
it's
don't
like the
have-
slowest
I don't
incline
have
I've
any
ever
more.
seen.
Wow.
Ah, well, nothing that several attempts can't fix. This brings to mind a minor complaint I have. Since dying, loading, reloading, and trying again is such a laborious task, you often feel punished for experimenting. This is less of an issue if you use save states generously, but more obvious tells for death traps would have been appreciated. Once the game is sure you can kill mushrooms and skeletons, it starts throwing heftier combat challenges at you. The Temple of Wind, for instance, has these fellas who move quickly and toss wind magic at you. Along with that, there's these salamander guys whose projectiles I'm just convinced are unavoidable. Thankfully, the game doesn't really have bosses, other than in very select moments. This is a good thing. It lets you sit back and enjoy the game's ambience without having to worry about saddling yourself with healing items. Speaking of ambience, this game's got it in spades, which should not be a surprise anymore. With the visuals getting better and the tone becoming intentionally darker, the game almost feels like one of those modern indie games that's made to look like a PS1 game, but it's the genuine article. If you were going to experience any one Kingsfield game just for the sake of historical curiosity, I would probably recommend this one. There's such an awesome variety of moods this game gives you. I get a very strong case of secondhand nostalgia just playing it. I almost wish I'd played it as a child so that nostalgia could be firsthand, but man, this game is way too fucking scary for me to have played as a kid. I had to get my older brother to check our basement for re-deads before I'd go down till I was 24 years old. These faces on the walls alone would have given me nightmares back then. There's just such an intimidating presence to so many of the enemies in this game. In one dungeon, you've got to hunt down and find these golems. It's spooky enough to fight them with a low draw distance, you just don't know what's going to emerge from the fog. Then all of a sudden the game throws these black golems at you and they take 1 trillion hits and you're just white knuckling the controller trying not to get clobbered. The black golems drop a material called Prometheus. Later on, in an abandoned dwarven village, you can have the lone smithy build you pieces of armor out of Prometheus. It's cool to have the option, but there are a few issues with it. The dwarven village itself is largely inaccessible. You have to travel through a pretty long dungeon to get there, and the village itself is a dead end. There's no way to double back somewhere else. You have to take a long road trip and back every time you want to build something. Mind you, the Prometheus armor also takes time to build, so you've got to go kill several minutes until it's ready for you. The second big problem is that by the time you've got enough Prometheus to have most or all of the armor, you're in the end game where superior armor can be found. All in all, a nice little idea that doesn't work all that well here, but it will be expanded on in Kingsfield's future. The environmental storytelling is also vastly improved over previous games. Without hearing about it, you begin to understand that there was some kind of a war between giants and another race, seemingly with the giants losing as their skeletons are scattered in ancient tombs. Sounds a little familiar. One of my favorite instances of this type of storytelling comes later in an area called the Fields of Ice. In order to progress, you'll need to find a switch hidden in a carved-out section of the mountain. This leads you to the Caves of Garan. On top of having the switch be deliberately hidden, the entrance to this area just screams, "Danger, don't go here." After the passage has been opened, you can come back later to find the entire area overrun, where once there were ice gargoyles roaming freely, lizard men and giants have taken control of the area, enemies that were trapped in the caves. It seems the new inhabitants slaughtered those gargoyles. Was the passage sealed to prevent this? Is there a grudge between these groups from ages past? Were the giants held prisoner? This area also seems to be a point of excavation for Prometheus metal. Perhaps some kind of conflict involving this resource took place. There are a lot of questions lending to this air of mystery, which is very prevalent in the third game. The elevated focus on storytelling also extends to the storytelling. There are characters with interesting things to say, actual arcs that characters go through. You meet an elf named Lynn, or re-meet rather, as Lyle and Lynn were actually childhood friends. She clearly has a crush on me. She clearly has a crush on Lyle, and it's nice to have some established character history, as well as a friendly face, because not everybody takes so kindly to Lyle. Throughout the game, you'll see Lynn in a few different places, having exhausted her dialogue. She recalls stories of Alexander, her best friend after Lyle left 10 years ago. He'd given her a ring and told her that if she ever wanted to see him again, to put the ring on and come to the Dragon's Spring. But Alexander, having sacrificed himself to seal the Mad King, is not alive any longer. Later, after much contemplation, Lynn leaves to look for her father, who went to the Caves of Garan to find Prometheus. You find her there, dead, with Alexander's ring. It's not Shakespeare, but you care a little less about just getting to the finish line and a little more about the people inhabiting Verdite. This increased emphasis on characters as well as the tragedy surrounding them is a result of Nishida's influence. His desire to tell more epic as well as more personal stories is on display without sacrificing any of that narrative minimalism that Kingsfield is known for. It's another clear and obvious influence present in the Souls games. Things don't usually work out for the people you meet because this isn't a fantasy world of abundance, hopes, and dreams. It's a world of decay, a world on its last legs where the only hope is some guy who falls off rocks and dies. But that same man also willingly jumps off rocks and lives, so perhaps hope does spring eternal. That is, until you reach the Palace of Death. This place was Sense Fortress before Sense Fortress. I mean, my god. The tricks, the traps, the skeletons, the ghosts, the skeletons, the secret walls, the labyrinths, the skeletons, the skeletons. They don't take it easy on you in this game. Thankfully, with dungeons having more obvious entry points, you know when it's a good idea to prepare. As you unlock more areas, the game bestows upon you a mercy nearly on par with the Pixies map. I'm talking about the Icrius artifacts. From a narrative standpoint, you're supposed to collect these artifacts in order to enter the barrier surrounding Verdite Castle. In gameplay terms, these 3 artifacts will allow you to fast travel to the town associated with them. You'll still have to hoof it anywhere that isn't one of the game's 3 towns, at least until you combine the artifacts. After the Excelictor has reached its highest level and the Icrius items are collected, you can return to Leon, who asks you to wait for a little while. When you return, Leon will have disappeared, leaving in his place an upgraded Excelictor. The Excelictor, in true Excelictor fashion, isn't as good as the sword you can get nearby called the Triple Fang. The sword is actually in the other games as well, probably the least practical looking weapon ever made, except for Kingsfield 3, where it's basically just a normal cool sword. Anyway, aside from the sword, you'll also get an item called the Icrius Key. This lets you teleport to any fountain in the game. Since a fountain is strategically placed in almost every above ground zone, this is incredibly helpful, if a bit of an inelegant solution to the game's traversal problems. In fact, Nishida was pretty busted up over having to sacrifice Kingsfield 2's style of level design. He wanted to implement more 3-dimensional winding verticality, but due to the graphical improvements and area sizes, it was simply impossible to have these 2 things exist alongside each other. Still, they were resourceful with what they had, and the Icrius Key makes a strong positive difference in your ability to explore. If you know what you're doing, it's possible to sequence break various aspects of Kingsfield 3. In fact, I accidentally skipped a quest this way. There are these items that unpetrify characters and enemies that have turned to stone. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? They're very expensive, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't caught with my pants down, so I spent all of my money on one right away. Later, you find a warrior named Veyrak encased in stone, so of course I used the item to save him. Then he starts talking about some lady named Tony I've never met, as if I'm supposed to know her. It turns out that you're supposed to talk to her first, and then she gives you one of these items in question. The moral of the story is this: don't try to be proactive, don't try to be smart, life will just screw you over. Nonetheless, it's cool that you can avoid some of these quests altogether if you know what you're doing. Using the Icrius Key is the only way to reach the Valley of the High Elves, which isn't nearly as whimsical a place as the name would have you believe. In fact, it's very depressing. The variation in elevation and geometry here really showcase how much more complex the third game is on that front. This area, at least as it is now,